So, to take off from our keynote speaker when he was speaking about cultural policy and what should be the role of the government, I didn't make a presentation because of the shortage of time. I don't want the flag in my face early on. So, I'll quickly just run you through what we are doing and more importantly, what is our vision for, say, the next 5 years, which has also been announced in the budget speech recently. So, I'll just come very quickly to that. So I look after all the museums, national museums as we call them, which were set up. Everything good really around the museum space happened in the 60s. Of course, the earliest museums we have, the oldest Indian Museum in Kolkata was set up in 1814. And the second one in Chennai, in Egmore. It's a beautiful museum, but has gone to, seeing bad days. So, we are really trying to transform our museums, but we're going slightly beyond that. Now, I'm fortunate that I also look after academies. So I'm able to take a more holistic view of both the tangible and intangible cultural heritage of our country, which is very important because when you work in silos and you look after, say, just the artifacts, we also have ASI, the most important organization in our ministry, as you know. They have the responsibility of looking after more than 3,000 protected monuments, and these are just the central list. Of course, each state has its own list. So apart from that, looking after artifacts and monuments, which are the tangible remnants of our old heritage, we also have the intangible cultural heritage, which is actually older, as you all know. It goes back to thousands of years. And I want to quote one of the great visionaries of this country, Maulana Azad, who was our first education minister, because culture used to be a department under Ministry of Education. And because this is something, again, going back to what Mr. Isar started by saying that why should the government take this role? And he said that if we wait for the academy, he was referring to the Sahitya Academy. Sahitya and Sangeet Natak Academy was set up by an executive order of Ministry of Education that time in 1952. He said if we wait for the academy to grow from below, we'll have to wait for the Greek calends. Now Greek calends, as you know, refers to a time which will never come because there was a dispute between Greeks and the Romans regarding the days in the calendar. So that is why in the beginning we had to have a top-down approach, whether we like it or not, because at that time not everybody would have really understood what is needed and would have the kind of money and resource to set up these great institutions, which are still around mercifully. Sahitya Academy, Sangeet Natak, Lalit Kala, and Indira Gandhi National Center came later. But all these institutions have had a remarkable space in our country and they have nurtured the arts to a large extent. Of course, all of them need transformation because cultural management is something which we are really lacking in this country. The management of cultural institutions is an issue which is really bothering us, and we are trying to do something, and we really look forward to working with the private sector in this because it's not possible for government to do this.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting this wonderful day. I'm so glad I came. I tend not to go anywhere, but it's wonderful to be with these beautiful people. I have 5 minutes and 500 slides, so that's, how much does it make it? 2 slides per second, okay? So let's get you started. As I was kindly introduced, I work for the Aga Khan Trust for Culture. Have been doing so long before some of you were born, so it's my 21st year with AKTC. During that time, I worked in some of these countries, but we essentially work across the world. And we are part of the Aga Khan Development Network. AKDN, set up by His Highness the Aga Khan, employs about 85,000 people and is one of the largest philanthropic development in the world, networks in the world. That is a city park in Cairo, and you can see the dense population all around it. The reason I show it, this was something that the Aga Khan paid for and created in the 1970s, 80s. and since then has been a template for a lot of our work. He realized that Cairo had enough open space for every citizen to put one foot on the ground, which was clearly not sufficient. So this park today attracts more visitors than the pyramids. That's quite something if you're in Cairo. But also we work with a population of about 200,000 who live around the park and fix several great monuments. This is the Al-Azhar World Heritage Site of Cairo. So in that sense, it's been a template for a lot of our work. That's just a pretty picture done by Himanish Das, but it shows you what the Nizamuddin area would have been in the 19th century. The good old times, as we all like to believe, profusely dotted with monuments built for 700 years around the Sufi shrine of Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia. So we were invited by the government of India to, so we really got engaged with the Humayun's Tomb site in 1997 as a gift of His Highness the Aga Khan on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of India's independence, and then followed up with this much larger project spread across 300 acres, where we include conservation, social economic development, and environmental conservation in Delhi. More recently, we've been working in Hyderabad at the Qutub Shahi tombs. So essentially, one of the things that AKDN does is improve quality of life. That's it. Improve quality of life. So there are 10 different agencies. All of us do it in different ways. It's easy for not people in this room, but easy for general people to understand that, if you improve health infrastructure or education infrastructure, quality of life improves. But for 30 years now, long before anybody else was talking about it, His Highness the Aga Khan has been talking about leveraging cultural assets for improving quality of life. And we do this through culture. We basically, that's the intention. And this is quality of life not only for local inhabitants, but also for the whole city of Delhi and all the international visitors and so on. How is this even possible? Well, no one agency can do it. We get a lot of credit and recognition, but the reason we are able to do it is we built a lot of partnerships. And that is really the organization question. All over the world, we work only with government, and then we build other partnerships. So one of the smartest things we did was we hung around for 2 years to sign a single piece of paper with 3 different government organizations. I know I'm on record, but I'll still risk it to say that none of these organizations talk to each other. So we are the real bridge between all of them, but that allows us to do an urban conservation project already. 1 minute, you must have some watch that runs very fast. But that has been absolutely critical in that sense that, and you've got Deepika sitting at the back who's been a great support at the Tata Trust. But we've got in white government agencies, in blue corporate, in blue sort of trustees, donors, trusts, and then international corporates and so on. So it's a whole gamut of possible partners that we've been able to secure partnership with. And that's allowed us to do some of this work. So unfortunately, 20 years after we started, we remain the only private agency working on India's national monuments. Someday it's going to change. Someday there'll be recognition that this is an employment creation. So 14 lakh man days of work for master craftsmen just doing conservation over the last 10 years. Traditional materials, and UNESCO, India is a signatory to the historic urban landscape approach. So we've done about 60 monuments, and this is Neela Gumbad, was in that condition, is today in that condition. We were able to extend the World Heritage Site by sort of a long process, but very clever. We were able to secure World Heritage status for 12 additional monuments. We've done a lot of work with school children, 500,000 of who come to Humayun's Tomb every year. And we've done a lot of work everywhere in the world. Our conservation goes hand in hand with improving conditions. So we've created cultural performance venues. This is where Qawwali was born, Nizamuddin. And so we've created cultural venues, and for this crowd I put in 3 pictures showing exactly that. But we've also engaged with the community. So we are working on bottom left picture, the first ever live mosque where conservation is happening. The community needed open spaces, classrooms, computers, health, toilets. Long before it was sexy in India to build toilets, we were building toilets. And addressing the employment question. So a lot of youth, women, urban improvements of the historic urban neighborhood. This is what the Nala was before. This is how it is now. And this is why we do it. I mean, you don't have the time to read it, but it's essentially a springboard for social development. More recently, we've created, Sundar Nursery, City Park, and His Highness has a whole reason for doing some of this work. But hopefully some of you will come and see it. Yesterday we opened a new art installation here, no time for this. What is more interesting is, as a bridge between the three sites, we're building a new museum, and this will be a site museum, again a template for many more. This will be owned by the Archaeological Survey of India, but we've agreed to manage it for a 10-year period. And it takes an interdisciplinary team to do this work. So thank you very much.
Hip hop, as we all know, doesn't belong to India. It comes from the Bronx, but this culture invariably has seeped in places, in different places like Dharavi, be it in Music Basti in Delhi. So there are different pockets of India where there are issues like oppression, there is agitation, there's angst. So how do we actually, rise them up from there? So in order to retain the culture, we are trying to bring the indie scene, the desi hip hop here. And this is what we are all trying to help the kids, to give them a platform to voice their opinion, to give them a stage, and at the end of the day, to empower each one of them to follow their passion. So this is the Dharavi Dream Project. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me, especially since I think we're the youngest organization in the room. So Design Beku is 1 year old. It started as a consequence of me being an academic for around 10 years and getting a little frustrated with the fact that what we seemed to make our careers on was critique, but we didn't do much about it. So one of the turning points in my life was coming to Shrishti, which is a school, a space, an interdisciplinary space that looks at art, design, and technology. And I met some like-minded colleagues there who work in the spaces of human-centered design and public space design, and together the four of us now run Design Beku. Our founding kind of principles are around curatorship, stewardship, and custodianship. And what I mean by this is who gets to curate, who gets to steward, and who gets to custodian or be the custodian of their cultures, of their communities, of their archives, which is a space that I work in. And so that kind of question has kind of followed us along on this journey. So our first project was around the 377 judgment, or the striking down of the judgment, with Sangama, which is an organization that supports sexual minorities and sex workers and people living with HIV. What was really interesting about this project was that in Karnataka, all over Karnataka, people who were part of Sangama knew that 377 had happened, that it was something that was important for them, but they didn't actually know what it entailed. So we brought Mamta Sagar, who is a prominent Kannada poet, to translate the judgment, and we had a 2-day workshop where through song, through dance, through theater, through writing poems, jingles, illustrations. If you go to our website, you'll be able to see there was this giant canvas along which everybody drew and made out of clay what they saw their future to be, after the striking down of 377. And so that was our kind of first project. Due to our interests and our, expertise and experience, we also work in the space of making technology and how we look at technology more accessible and more kind of real to people. So this is something that we did with the Center for Internet and Society in Bangalore, which was around cybersecurity. So cybersecurity, the way that it is portrayed in the media is often, hackers wearing hoodies and green numbers on their faces. And we wanted to kind of demystify and kind of make it more real for people to understand what cybersecurity actually was. So that people who were writing about cybersecurity had kind of a breadth of a vocabulary to draw on that made it more accessible and less scary for people. So I think because we are a group of designers, illustrators, and academics, we're very keen to make concepts clearer in order for people to be better citizens, because it's only through understanding what kind of laws and policies are being formulated around your everyday lives, for example, your digital life, that you can actually enact change. Speaking of technology and design, this is a project that I've been doing with Professor Ayona Datta, who is an urban geographer at King's College, now University College London. And this is a project called Gendering the Smart City, where we were working with a group of girls in the peripheries of Delhi in Madanpur Khadar. Basically, this project was kind of understanding how young women use mobile phones, use technology to negotiate and navigate the city. So we used different kinds of methodologies. One of the methodologies we used was called WhatsApp diaries, where they would chronicle their comings and goings in the city with images, with voice notes, etc., just talking about how they encountered the city, how technology helped them, how technology hindered them, how it enabled them different ways of being which may not have existed without the mobile phone. Something that we co-created together was a Wikipedia entry on their neighborhood. This for me is quite a significant project because I am very critical and have been very critical of the way that platforms, especially things like Google, companies like Google, have been kind of hegemonizing and kind of flattening the narrative around cities. And this was our way of thinking about an intervention and kind of mapping a city from below. So it has, I mean, of course it has the kind of standard, what you need for Wikipedia information, etc. But what we liked was that when we spoke about the neighborhood, the girls who were contributing kind of told us about their stories about the neighborhood. So you have Jalebi Chowk, Samosa Chowk, and we kind of flagged those up as spaces that you wouldn't see on Google Maps. Lastly, we've been working on a project trying to get the design community, as in people who work in design in industry, to kind of start thinking about the ethics in user research. So obviously, as academics, we're constantly being told that we need to be ethical in our research. There are boards, there are kind of hoops that we have to jump through to ensure our research is ethical. But a lot of user research that is being conducted in the mainstream design industry does not have any such code of ethics. This is becoming incredibly crucial because one of the biggest demographics that the industry caters to and is also producing material for are what we call the next billion users. These are emergent users on mobile phones. And this means that when we're collecting data, when we're collecting information about these users, it is easier and easier to triangulate and identify users, and that can be used in harmful ways. So, so this is just an overview of what we've been working at, and we'll probably talk more about it in the quick Q&A. Thank you.
Particularly that one slide that showed how the EU contribution was about 50%, where he looked at how some of the projects he's been a part of were funded, and how it was 50% EU contribution, and then remaining chunks were individuals, organizations, and so on. So I'm just asking, broadly, if you can tell us more about the government's mandate towards arts and culture. But what I guess a lot of us, including me, would be really interested in is, where do we look towards the government to help us on our projects? How do we come to the government for funding? Is there a way, is there a mechanism, and how can we involve the government more and more as our partner? Because as of now, there is an apprehension or a fear about reaching out to and engaging the government. So does the government have money, and how can we access some of it? So is my broad question to you.
I wanted to start by saying, show me the money. And here I'm being asked to give me the money. So, see, the kind of engagement government needs to have with private sector has not been very good, I guess. But it's time that we make a break from the past. I mean, there is a lot of hesitance on both sides. And I mean, there could be different reasons, because government's mandate is always more broad-based. I'll just give you a small example. When, National Museum, we have a new exhibition coming up. It's a digital exhibition on Ajanta caves, which IIT Bombay has developed. It's really gorgeous. It's probably the first one of its kind in the world because it uses mixed media, AR, VR, everything. And obviously it needs a lot of money. So we are debating, how to ticket it. But it's always tricky because you don't want to exclude large sections of society, because if you ticket it too high, of course it's free for students, most of our museums are. But to find that balance is very difficult, for us, because we are not there to recover our revenue. That is not our objective, honestly. At the same time, there is no such thing as a free lunch. So if you don't price something, people think it must be substandard. So funding and revenue generation is a tricky question always for government. But now it's time we break, as I said, we want to make a break with the past, and we want to work with the private sector both for all kinds of resources, not just money. Because there may be something you may be interested in, which we want your support and we want your expertise more than the money. For instance, the new museums which Honorable PM announced, and they have been announced in the budget as well, we're taking up around 4 or 5 iconic museums because there's so many and you can't do everything all at once, which we want to, but it's sensible to try and do a few which become a kind of demonstration for what your intent, which will also obviously attract others like the people sitting here about what we are trying to do. So National Museum Delhi is one, of course, because it is located right on Janpath. And I remember as a student when I went there, I was so put off by the damp smell of the carpet. 25 years back I'm talking about. So we really have to make a break from that. It has to be much more professionally designed, inviting. Public spaces have to be better. There should be a good cafeteria, good bookshop, souvenir shop. So we are really trying to transform it. It takes time, it takes patience, but more importantly, we need to build teams. And we are really looking at support from all of you. Please, approach me. I'll be very happy to discuss. Send me a mail. And we are trying to build teams for each of our museum projects. The other one is Indian Museum Kolkata, as you know, the oldest. It's really, the local name is Jadugar. That's what it really became, like, what do you call it? Like a house of horrors, unfortunately, is what the term evokes. You just come and you stare at some objects, not even understanding what you're looking at, but you see, chalo kuch dekh ke aate hain. The locals do go to Indian Museum. But the curation was obviously not so good, and the collections are known world over. We have people doing research all over the world on objects of Indian Museum. But we ourselves have neglected the kind of inventory which has to be made, the digitization or, archiving, that has not been good. So transforming Indian Museum is a huge task for us. So we're also picking up museums around the country, 2 of which are Chennai, the museum in Egmore. It's a gorgeous building. I don't know if any of you have seen it. It's huge, 1 lakh square feet of display area and a lovely building, second oldest in India, with amazing collections, but in a very bad shape. Then there's the Sri Pratap Singh Museum in Srinagar, which is again gorgeous. It's located on the banks of the Jhelum. It has superb collections. The old heritage building is lovely with papier-mâché ceilings, etc. And we have, as I said, we can't do everything all at once. But we need the support. We need the support of people like you who are passionate about culture, because it's not everyone's cup of tea. It's not a project like an infrastructure project which is more driven by timelines and how much amount of resource you put in. This has to go beyond. So we're really looking for passionate people, and our funds are limited also because we have a lot of organizations and we have a lot of museums across the country.
I want to take your spirit of collaboration that you spoke about just now, saying that we all have to come together and work, whether it's in heritage, whether it's other things, and take that to you, Ratish, where you're trying to do this with all your revival projects, right? What I really loved, part of our team visited Humayun's tomb last week itself, and I loved, and with what you showed online as well, that all the projects are not just about revival of the monuments, but about, cultural revival, working with the communities collaboratively within you know, every space that you have and creating livelihoods for them. I especially love the small little gift shop that was there in the, you know, as you walk up to Humayun's Tomb, selling craft products that were made in the Basti right next door as well. Tell me more about this, because it's, in a sense, it's building upon what Nirupama said, that what we really have to do this together and with everyone.
I think in India, unfortunately, culture, heritage is all seen as very elitist. Yeah. And it's seen as the rich man's hobby, which takes away money that should really be spent on health and education. And that is what we've been trying to break. We've been trying to sort of demonstrate that through culture you can actually improve quality of lives. So when we started in the Basti, we found that less than 1% of the residents had been to a park in the last 6 months. So we had to remove a lot of encroachments in the Basti, create parks for women. I mean, the feminists over here will get very upset. 21st century women need a park. But that is the reality. We do an annual fair. And so not only culture, we realized that 85% malnutrition. We realized that less than 9% of women had any economic opportunities, and all of that was domestic help. So a couple of those images I showed is these people now earning a livelihood. And a lot of our programs really been sent, the reason we've been successful is we've been able to reach out and involve the women of the community. So the women are managing the toilet, the women are managing the park, the women, there's a major health program, which again the Tata Trusts have been supporting, community health program. It's the only urban community health program in India, where, so there are no cases of childbirth and all of those cases have gone. But money, so there are about 800 women who are in various self-help groups producing products and earning at least 5,000 rupees a month. And they're doing this in the comfort of their homes, in the time available to them. And that's really been a game changer. I think once we have the museum and the museum shop and all of that. So that little kiosk actually last year had sales of over 42 lakh of rupees, you know. And just notebooks and so on. And these are women who've never seen a penny in their whole lives. So a lot of what we try, and there has been street improvement. The school, when we started in the school, there were 60 kids. It went up to 600. And it's better than, I mean, essentially you cannot, we need to demonstrate that conservation and development need to go hand in hand. And one of the smartest things we did in Nizamuddin Basti is not to start with the heritage. We started with the health program, we started with the education program, we built the toilets, and carried out urban improvements. It's only when the Baoli collapsed in 2008 that we moved in and started working on heritage. And even then there was a lot of suspicion because of the law and, you know, how heritage is seen. And there was somebody, the municipal corporation DC before us, who before we signed the agreement told the community कि जहाँ घर है वहाँ मैं park बनाऊंगा, जहाँ park है वहाँ मैं घर बनाऊंगा. So he had this American 1970s image that you'll do the 20-storied building and move the community there and have nice parks around the monument. So we started on a really bad footing. But you know, a lot of us, what we do wrong is we say, how can the community help in the conservation? I mean, that's bullshit. These people don't get 2 meals a day, they have poor quality of life, no sanitation, no meals, no. You cannot ask them to contribute to conservation. So all over the world I've gone, same question conservationists ask. Let's involve the community in the conservation effort. Forget it. Let's conservation benefit the community. Monetarily, providing much needed infrastructure, and that's what we're trying to demonstrate.
Dolly, I want to take the same thought to you of how can culture help the communities, because that's what you're trying to do with the Dharvi Dream Project, right? Tell us how you got this buy-in from Kyunki, from Universal Music Group, in terms of training this young talent. Did you use slides? How did you convince them to invest? Because all of us, and the government is a big organization, the Aga Khan Foundation is big. Y'all both are very, very young and very, very small. So we're shifting in terms of size from scale. But the challenges are the same, right? It's about collaboration, it's about buy-ins, and it's about successful outcomes. Tell us about your journey towards actually making this happen.
It was a very difficult one. Of course, with QK, it was much easier because my co-founder is also a mentor on the project. So for him, he was the one who actually told me we should definitely do this. So that was, half battle won. But with Universal Music Group, I was actually at the brim. I had quit my full-time job and I wanted to get full-time into the Dharavi Dream project because I was seeing that the kids really need nurturing, mentoring. And I was, when I came full-time, I was going through the accounts and I had exactly 2 months in which the funds were all getting exhausted. And I was like, okay, I've quit everything and I'm back here. And my parents were wondering that, because I would travel and set up operations in different countries. So they were wondering, why do you need to do this? So that was another question that I was trying to, figure out an answer for them. But with Universal, there was no slide, there was no deck. It was there in my mind that I have to get it done. The school has to function. They had a buy-in that, they were interested, but it takes time because Universal being a multinational organization, there are like series of approvals that are needed. And I didn't have that much time. So I fixed an appointment and I met the CEO of Universal Music Group, that is Devraj, and I tried explaining him and, I shared what's happening back at the school, how the kids are growing. And, this is a very unique concept. It's the first ever, after school of hip hop in Asia. All this was fancy, all this was nice. The nods, they were nodding their head and this is great, you're doing great and all of that. And I was like, okay, this is not working. Let me just take you all to the school. And that was the ice-breaking moment because when you show them the reality on ground and you actually give them a perspective of what's happening and the scale at which, we were looking at or the vision that we had, that really got me a conversion. And they saw the real talent. And it wasn't, there's, after Gully Boy, there is a certain style of rap, which is Bachi Bamai Bantai style, gully rap. But the kids back at the school, they observe, the circumstances, the situations around. So it's a very different style of very in-depth rap flow, beatboxing that comes out. And so I actually didn't do anything. It's the talent, the kids who got this opportunity, they got to showcase their talent, and whoever comes to the school, they get so excited, they give their 200%. So that is how I believe that show your work, and then, of course, people who believe will definitely contribute.
But I want to talk to you about exactly the same. Everyone's kind of talking about a collaborative, bottoms-up approach, and your work, your approach is also in terms of the structure of the collective as well, right? You've made it very, very bottoms-up and trying to arrive at design solutions together. What kind of sector impact has this kind of non-traditional structure really enabled?
So I think one of the major reasons that we started Design Beku was because we actually militated against the idea of design solutions. So I think design thinking and design solutions have become these buzzwords, and I think they are kind of glib distractions from what design actually is, which is political, and we don't talk about that enough. So I think what we're trying to do through, say, the work that we're doing on the user ethics, user research ethics framework, is to make the design industry more aware of the decisions that they're taking. Of course, all of us are also teachers, so it's also about kind of making our students understand that where they're working, the context is incredibly important, right? So NID was founded on Bauhaus principles. Shrishti and many other design schools follow incredibly Western paradigms of what it means to be designing. And so I think what we were interested in is to not helicopter in design and rather work with and facilitate communities for them to design for themselves. So I think we see ourselves as kind of facilitators and kind of encouraging people to think in maybe slightly different ways to address issues that they know best. They know the challenges the best. And so I think, there's definitely a shift happening. Design Up, which is the biggest conference that happens around design. This year, I think there were like 7 talks on ethics. And we were actually slightly suspicious of this. And somebody told us it's because people don't want to be sued, which I'm like, whatever it takes. But yeah, I think there is an awareness. I think the people that we've spoken to in the industry, I currently work in the industry as well, have been incredibly open. There's a lot of interest, there's a lot of input, and people are beginning to at least ask the right questions, and so I'm hopeful.
Yeah, and thank you. And what I'm hearing from you and from actually everyone is that the organization of the future, irrespective of its size, is really going to be community-based, community-oriented, deeply collaborative, and invested in a bottoms-up approach wherever you're located.